very focused on being open about the ways in which they go about their business, bringing communities of practice together and coming around the table as equals to discuss these issues and to look for solutions in all possible places. So it's with great delight that I introduce Peter Singer to talk about Saving Grains, innovations to help children thrive. His terrific work, and Gary's also had a lot to do, as he mentioned, with the formulation of this idea of saving grains. And what I'd like to do in the next 30 minutes or so is just give you an overview of what is a portfolio of innovations that are trying to really shift the focus from survival alone to also include thrival for children in low-income countries. And it's a portfolio that's now developing in partnership with many other organizations that you can see listed. Many of those organizations have complementary portfolios, but as Gary mentioned, we're all working together really to try and keep the focus on the end beneficiary, which is the world's children and their opportunity to thrive. This is one of many grand challenges that you will have heard of, saving lives from birth. There's another one as part of the broader grand challenges movement, but it's one that really is brought focus on this issue of thrival, I think. And you see it stands even to domestic governments like Ethiopia, which recently launched its own grand challenges in Ethiopia, and wanted to focus on this problem as so central to the children of Ethiopia. The challenge then I came out here without the clicker. So either you're going to hit the slide or something clicker into. Perfect. That's wonderful. So what is the problem? Thank you. What is the problem that we're seeking to address? And many of these things have been referenced already in the talk this morning. The problem that we're seeking to address is for 1 in 3 children, that's 200 million children globally, who fail to reach their full physical, cognitive, psychological, and psychomotor potential due to poverty, poor health and nutrition, insufficient care, stimulation. I'll talk a little bit about the risk factors in the approach in a moment, and of course other risk factors. So enabling this whole movement of early child development in the first 3 years of life, as we've heard throughout the conference, has very important returns, including economic returns of 7 to 10% across the life course, better education, health, sociability, economic outcomes, and even reduced crime, which I think was referenced this morning. The Global Strategy for Women, Children, and Adolescent Health, which is the implementation of the Secretary General's Every Woman, Every Child initiative, was actually relaunched this past fall with a focus on survive, thrive, and transform. So thrive is now in the global policy discourse. The real question, and this is the question I want to address with you, is how do we actually apply solutions? What solutions do we have? How do we actually apply solutions? How do we turn the types of knowledge we're hearing about here into concrete action for the world's children? Just to reference one of the earlier talks, we heard about Zika. Zika can be thought about as a threat to saving grains. So if you look at a holistic look at various risk factors, you see there promote health and nutrition, infection prevention and management is on there. Zika is a new saving grains threat. And actually, one should ask oneself what the GDP of Brazil in 20 to 30 years is going to be like, because it's microcephaly is probably the tip of the iceberg. There's probably much wider effects on brain development and child development. We know that translates into effects on the economy and on society. And over the last couple of days, in some conferences in Washington, people were even comparing the Zika epidemic with the early days of the HIV epidemic. Zika are not asleep at the switch on Zika. There's a lot of activity on Zika. We heard, for example, about the President Obama's initiative, and the USAID launched the Zika Challenge recently, a Center Grand Challenge. But it really is a social, economic, and public health emergency that maybe isn't garnering the type of resources that are needed to safeguard what the effect on Brazil and other countries in the region, the economy and society could be like 20 to 30 years from now as kids who are infected today grow up. Anyway, one of the niches in the Grand Challenge on saving grains is that we've taken a holistic approach, whereas many people over many years have started with the independent variables. Take one risk factor about nutrition and say nutrition is bad for brain development, I'm going to solve nutrition. Many people have done that over time, and they calculate the economic benefits of it. But what we've done is taken a holistic approach focused on the dependent variable, which is the brain development, the developmental potential of children. And we're risk factor agnostic because we recognize that the various risk factors operate in an interrelated manner, and different risk factors will be important in different jurisdictions. Think about Brazil and Zika, and that's probably the most prominent risk factor. But others are always in play everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're well-nourished, if you're a child soldier or Indiana. And so we really have to think about the independent risk factors in a holistic manner. A little bit of a sudden metaphor, where the money is children's development. Let's focus on the dependent factors. How many brains we can be saving out of those 1 out of 3 children, the 200 million globally who fail to reach their full potential. So taking to that Grand Challenge, the commitment to the Saving Grains Challenge in particular, and Grand Challenge Canada is funded by Government Canada, so these are public Canadian taxpayer resources. We've committed just over $42 million to just over 100 innovations as a platform in thrival, in saving grains. And I'll describe some of those to you. This has happened over the past 5 years or so. And what this has turned into is probably the world's largest holistic pipeline of thrival innovations. As I mentioned, it's updated. It's aligned with the Global Strategy for Women, Children, and Adolescent Health. There's actually a website called savinggrainsinnovations.net where you can see all these innovations categorized, including service release. And in terms of leadership, we've tried to catalyze this growing partnership on a focus on child development in low-income countries. And more about that before going on to the solutions. If you were an evil scientist and you wanted to make sure that developing nations really didn't develop, and the poor in the developing world, but also, as Alan was pointing out, as many of the speakers have been pointing out, the poor in our own countries never really achieve social mobility. tap into children's brains. So they would never reach their full potential. And poverty would be transmitted generation after generation. And kids in poor families would be locked into poverty, whether they were kids in disadvantaged communities here in the United States or Canada, or in low and income countries. So you can think about this problem as really a way of perpetuating poverty, and you can think about the solutions to this problem as a way of breaking out poverty locally and globally. And that's counterfactual to the evil scientists and what you would do. I think it's a very interesting one, because what that says to me is that this David Grace challenge is really one of the most fundamental societal challenges we face. 100 billion and huge amounts of social suffering is seen as related to violence and hurt. So this is a very fundamental challenge. So the issue is the challenge. We've heard a lot of knowledge around the challenge. The issue is, well, what are we going to do about it? What kind of solutions do we have in place? These numbers I won't dwell on, but just of those 100+ projects, these are the amounts of children who are using innovations today, caregivers, workers, brain. We're just to Gary's point, we're following metrics and also metrics of child development, so core metrics across the projects. So we started out with some knowledge generation things. We used what I think is a relatively creative approach of a request for proposals to all those folks who have done randomized trials of a wide range of interventions in the first 1,000 days of life in the past. Many of those trials, there were about 150 local many of those trials were actually oriented around survival innovations or child development innovations for the short-term follow. And what we say is, okay, you did your trial 10, 15, 20 years ago. We will now do some funds to follow up those children and to see what happens with them mentally in the long term. It's actually, if you will, a poor person's way of getting a lot of information very quickly from randomized trials and previous things that we've done. There's some really interesting preliminary findings from that. I think it's around $7 billion investment, and most of these are still unpublished, and I would be the last one to disclose unpublished findings and introduce a pre-publication bias, so I would never do that. So I've listed them on the slides of associations, but just and imagine a world, I'm not saying that these associations are positive, but imagine a world where these associations actually were positive. Kangaroo mother care has a low birth weight index, and measuring effect on schooling in wages in 20 years. Imagine if kangaroo mother care actually was presented with a low birth weight index 20 years later, and you could show reducing kids' brains who were essentially normal kids in kangaroo mother care, and the one was in child development. Imagine if we were following up kids' mother care in Bangladesh, and you saw huge amounts of disability after not cerebral malaria, but severe malaria, and you're looking at the effects of regular testing. Imagine if you're looking at intervention of responsive stimulation and nutrition together on school readiness 4 years later in Pakistan. Imagine if you're looking at exclusive breastfeeding against relationship conduct disorders on multiple micronutrient supplementation and social and child development later in Indonesia. So these are all findings that haven't come out. I'm obviously not sharing the findings with you. I'm just talking about the associations. But imagine if all these associations were positive and there was some increased amount of knowledge here from what these risk factors actually are by taking that approach. As an aside, we did talk in the discussion period about the crippling effect of academic publishing. I think visually you can actually refer to this on saving lives and improving lives in the developing world. But that's a separate discussion in terms of timeline. We've also funded some economic work. I mentioned before that the global strategy for women, children, and adolescent health said that the total cost of the world economy of this problem of war and child development, they're actually talking about maternal and child health overall, is $100 billion a year. Well, the cost comes from the child development side. It doesn't come so much from the child survival side. That's where the costs of this problem are in MNCH. And we supported some modeling. Again, unpublished, but I can tell you the numbers are significantly larger than $100 billion a year. And I think this will be unfair. And you can also segment it by countries. See on the website here. You can see it in Medicare finance. And you can see it under country. And you can see what the GDP loss is. And you can see the various risk factors. Women health are. So, for example, malnutrition and other types of risk factors. This is still a snapshot of things you know, but how that works in a country. That's because I'm several times. But what I want to do is share some innovations that we're funding where we're seeing solutions rolled out. So this one, I'm going to go past those slides. This was based on the Jamaica Centers for Child Development. People familiar with the centers in Jamaica? So these were very well conducted trials, and I find it very interesting because they are actually the ones that have most shown the effect on violence of innovations like in the Jamaica program, home visitation, far out, 20 years out. And these have actually been shown to reduce gun violence. So it's actually not only the $100 million of benefits, it's also the social factors of violence. And what these folks have done is they took all their materials, how to make toys cheaply and locally, how to do the home visitation program. And this was essentially a knowledge translation project. They put them all on a website and made them available to other country governments who wanted to implement similar home visitation projects, and partnered with the Inter-American Development Bank and launched this with the Inter-American Development Bank, which, as you know, has governments as customers. And this was launched last September, and we see early users like Zimbabwe, Guatemala, Brazil taking this up. So this is the idea of taking the materials in a randomized trial, the actual how to make toys, how to do the visits, etc., of this home visitation program, this evidence-based program shown to work, and disseminating it globally to governments. Because what we know from our work in scaling is at the end of the day, you can't push a string. You've got this pipeline of innovations, but at the end of the day, especially for things like this, it is the domestic governments in low and middle income countries that need to have the update, that need to integrate this into their programs, that need to fund it. And this is an example of this to do so. This is an interesting project that I visited called mobile creches. It's really amazing. It turns out that in India, about 3 million children of migrant workers on construction sites are lacking access to basic education, basic nutrition. So I visited one of these outside a large city in India, and you're kind of walking in, you get through this chain link fence, you're walking through these muddy paths, essentially some migrant camp. You see the building going up in the background, where normally the kids would have been up on the cranes with the parents. And you're walking through, and all of a sudden you get into the middle, and there's this bright, vibrant, fun-filled creche full of, the day I was there was about 100, 120 children there, from very young ages to a little bit older. And they're being stimulated, they're being nourished. So these are the most vulnerable children. These are children of migrant workers. And here is an innovation that, as you can see, is spreading to many sites. You see that under outcomes in India, spreading to many sites. In terms of this innovation, it's incredible to watch these kids flourishing in the middle of this most impoverished migrant situation. And again, here's a situation where this NGO Mobile Creches is starting to negotiate with the builders to bring on resources from the construction industry, from the companies, to help support these creches. So it's an example of a social enterprise that is really tackling this problem for a particular segment of the population. Kangaroo mother care has been referenced several times today. We know that it saves lives. We also know that it saves brains from other work, including the work that I didn't exactly reference on the slide a few slides ago, showing that it's protective against remote birth weight children 20 years later. But we also know it hasn't scaled. And so, as Vishwajit, I think, was saying, the problem here is how to scale kangaroo mother care. So in this case, we supported some original work from the Kangaroo Foundation in Colombia, where they conducted the randomized trial I referenced earlier. Let's just say they might have shown that it was protective in terms of low birth weight children 20 years later. We then supported them to go to Cameroon and Mali and essentially do all the operational work you need to get it going in clinics, and to be reaching out to mothers, and to be measuring the rates of kangaroo mother care. And then, as a next layer, we worked with Social Finance UK to develop a financial innovation called the Development Impact Bond, which was essentially a pay-on-success model, where success includes putting up a rate of kangaroo mother care. And now, this whole package of things is finding its way into the country plan for Cameroon, in the context of the Global Finance Facility for Every Woman, Every Child. This is a World Bank multi-billion-dollar financial facility that is there to finance country-led packages of maternal, newborn, child health in the countries in the Global Finance Facility. So it's a good example of how innovation can start with a trial, generate some knowledge, turn a little bit more operational, layer on a financial innovation, and then link it to a situation where there's significant resources to scale. And we've done some modeling with and without the bond. That's not shown on the slide, but we can actually model out that you'll save many more brains and get much more kangaroo mother care with the financial innovation. And then, of course, the question is, we're all high risk. And of course, the question is, does it work? And that's the question we answer by actually implementing it. But it work on the scale of kangaroo mother care. We know itself is we know the intervention itself is effective. What we don't know is actually how to get it to scale. And I think the point that you were making earlier, that this is also an issue of personal behavior. So, is the financial incentives to the caregivers, with the women, and then going to actually achieve this? Is it more of a personal behavior? These are the elements that we need to check apart. But here you see a serious attempt to actually scale this innovation, which saves lives, can save brains. Here's an example, and those were all what we call transition scale grants. The ones I showed you, we would have typically invested $1 million Canadian, with another $1 million or so coming from the partners. So those are $2 million plus projects. Now I'm going to go through some seed projects, which are earlier projects. This one is in Peru, in a very poor municipality called Carbello, where approximately 4,000 children have developmental delays, and it's one of the poorest municipalities in Lima. The innovation is coaching to improve parenting behaviors and early learning for at-risk children by community health workers in individual and group settings. It includes nutritional support. Typically, many of these innovations include a combination of responsive parenting and nutritional support. Which, by the way, as a kind of reformed or retired physician, I just found it amazing when I started to look at the results of these trials that responsive parenting actually has as strong an effect as nutritional support. So if you start at this from a biological standpoint, and you're looking at the signal to noise, you're really bowled over by the importance of the types of human-family interactions that we're talking about earlier, and how they're actually a comparable signal, shall we say, comparable strength to some of the more biologically oriented interventions like nutrition. Anyway, this one in the seed showed a very significant signal of the innovation. And what this project is about is now integrating it into Peru's government program called Cudamas for early child development. And a lot of the work, a lot of the theory of change here is fund an innovation, do it in a local region, show that it can work, collect the evidence, work with the domestic government that then uptakes that innovation into its program. Because scale is actually, when you get over the issue, you have to go from knowledge to action. That's got some solutions. And then you've got some solutions, you're collecting evidence on those solutions. The next part of that problem, you almost always run into is the problem of scale. And even worse than scale is the problem of sustainability. In other words, who's going to pay for that innovation? What's the last Canadian taxpayer dollars? And early partnerships with domestic governments, or if appropriate with private sector entities, are essentially the way to address that challenge. So here's an example of Peru. Here is an example. Somebody referred to this earlier. I think Gary referred to it earlier. He was the hashtag He2She person in the conference here. And by the way, just as an aside, I'm really proud that of all our innovations, we have 700 innovations, as Gary mentioned, 70 of them are transitioning to scale through a venture capital approach. So 90% are seed, $100,000 to $200,000 of grant funding, and 10% are transitioning to scale with $1 million, $2 million of grant or non-grant funding. I'm very proud to say that of that latter group of the 70 innovations to transition to scale, 50% of those are actually led by women. So the gender lens here really matters. We're currently in the process of studying the differential effects of that leadership. But here's a He2She thing. Here's the Hanoi School of Public Health, which had the idea of that fathers play a more important role in creating safe, nurturing, and supportive environments with that how child outcomes. And the innovation was a program to mobilize more fathers in parenting through multimedia messages, through health education, individual counseling, fathers clubs, etc., and friendly competition. They found that in the intervention group, and supplementary findings, fathers were more supportive towards inclusive breastfeeding, and fathers had more positive attitudes, and generally had a good effect on breastfeeding. So here's an example. This is essentially 100% social innovation, but a social innovation that can be extremely important. By the way, we do have a concept of integrated innovation. We will support technologies, we support social innovations, we support financial innovations. We actually love to see them coming together as integrated innovations, because that's what we think is needed for innovations truly to scale. So here's an example of fathers clubs in Vietnam and potentially scaling that social innovation to achieve more breastfeeding, more stimulation, and better child development outcomes. This is an example in Bangladesh, combining the Thinking Healthy program, which is a program developed in Pakistan for treatment of maternal depression, and I know that was referenced earlier, with some child development innovations in terms of stimulation and nutritional innovations, like we were talking about earlier, in 474 mothers with depressive symptoms who were screened for depression. And the early results show that maternal depression improved. That's usually, you can usually show that with the Thinking Healthy program. But in this one, you're also getting early signals that the child development is actually improving also when you're treating maternal depression and stimulating the children. There was an earlier study done by a group in Pakistan that showed that the treatment of maternal depression alone, at least in their context, was not that strong in terms of the child development outcomes, at least in terms of physical growth. So there's a lot of gaps in the information and data, but it seems like combining these types of innovations is really what's needed to achieve the child development outcomes we're seeking. And rates of maternal depression can be very high. It can be very debilitating as mothers maybe don't interact as much, don't stimulate their children as much, aren't as responsive in their serve and return functions with children. This is the last image Alan was talking about earlier, which is the role of caregivers. So I also had the opportunity to visit this and to speak with this young boy, his name is Israel, and Israel had just joined this essentially creche, and he was withdrawn, he was shy. You can see him in the picture. I'm doing my best there to show him, I don't know what he's kind of hippopotamus or something, but he's really not that into it, and it was really interesting. And as I left, and I was just there visiting for an hour, he started crying, which really shows you a couple of things. It shows you the thirst for attachment and for the type of trust and things. So actually, one way of thinking about this overall, and this might sound a little bit schmaltzy, but essentially these innovations, these interventions all have to do with love. They have to do with loving children, responsibly interacting with them, feeding them, and what do all those things have in common? And so what Israel had pretty clearly was that's what he was really seemed to be lacking. And so you really see this program is a very high quality, you can see the background behind me there, very high quality creche that combines very high quality childcare with nutrition and trained CE people, etc. And it's right in the middle of the swamp. And the idea of this social enterprise is called Kidogo, is to link that situation with the situation you see in the bottom slide. Many times you have a very sensitive situation of informal caregiving in these slums. So parents go to work in the city, they leave their kids, sometimes about 15 at a time, as you see in the picture, in the care of an informal, completely untrained caregiver. When I visited this one case here, you can see they're kind of sitting in a dark room, they're not playing, their nutritional standards are not great. So the idea of Kidogo is actually linked to a demonstration project right in the same neighborhood, blockers away, a very high quality child care with excellent nutrition and excellent standards in a hub and spoke model with many of these situations that you see below, and raise the capacity of that informal caregiver to raise the abilities of the caregiving system generally. I think, Alan, this is very much along the lines of what you were referring to earlier, but in the context of an extremely impoverished community living in a slum outside of Nairobi. Again, this is social enterprise, the models being tested, etc. So I'm exactly on time. I spent 30 minutes talking to you about Saving Brains and the portfolio, and that leaves us with, I think, about 10 minutes for a good interaction, and would really love your feedback. Just to summarize my key messages. Number one, this problem of child development, call it Saving Brains, call it children thriving, whatever you like to call it, is perhaps the most fundamental social and economic challenge that we face in the world today, domestically and globally, because the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, are universal, so there's actually no distinction between domestically and globally. We see the very same types of situations, although maybe with different manifestations in our own impoverished communities. So this is a huge grand challenge. It's maybe the grandest challenge. Secondly, and that's because the implications are so huge, economically, socially, in terms of the future health of the children, in terms of their mental health, in terms of obesity, in terms of everything else, not getting disease. Secondly, we are at a point where the global policy environment is now starting to recognize the relevance of thrival. We previously been just looking at survival, which I think was really shooting ourselves in the foot globally, because thrival is actually what is most salient for parents. If I said to you, David, great news, your child has survived, that doesn't really resonate with you. You expect your child to survive, but what every parent wants is for their child to reach their full potential. It's a much more salient argument. So rather than pushing for survival, we can pull the message from thrival, which I think is much more effective in children reaching their full potential. We have a lot of knowledge about this area, including some very important fundamental knowledge that was reviewed through this conference, some of the measuring techniques that are being developed to engage some challenge here. But the real issue is how do you translate that knowledge into innovative solutions? And that's where the grand challenge approach really comes in. So then I showed you a portfolio where we actually attempted to do that with $40+ million and 100+ innovative